died without knowing Jesus as their personal Savior? What if he or she went to hell? What if one day you received a letter in the mail from beyond? A letter from hell. A letter from your friend in the flames of eternal torment. The following is a dramatic presentation. It was written by a fictitious high school student named Josh to a friend named Zach. Although Zach had every opportunity to tell Josh about Jesus, he didn't. They were best friends. They played soccer together, they went to classes together, they partied together, they shared their lives with each other. But there was one thing Zach held back from Josh: his personal relationship with Jesus Christ. The rest of the story is simple and sad. A few too many beers, a tragic drive home, a crash, a death, a funeral, a letter. Here is that letter in its entirety. A letter from hell.
Dear Zach, I died today. It's a lot different than I expected. You see, I always thought dying would bring me into a world that's foggy and hazy. But this place is crystal clear. It's even more real than my life on Earth. I can think. I can talk. I can even feel. Right after the wreck, I could feel my spirit leaving my body. It was the weirdest thing, Zach. I thought I heard you screaming out to me, man. I must have been just imagining things. At first, I was just standing in line, getting registered, I guess. They asked me for my name and began to look at this thing they call the Book of Life. I guess they couldn't find it though, because this huge angel standing next to me grabbed me by the arm and started dragging me away. I was terrified. I had no idea what was going on. I asked the angel where he was taking me, but he didn't answer. So I asked him again. Finally, he told me that only those whose names were written in the Book of Life could enter into heaven. And the rest would be condemned to hell forever. Man, I was scared. The angel threw me into some kind of holding cell where I've been sitting and thinking for a long, long time. Do you want to know what I've been thinking about? I've been thinking about you. Zach, you're a Christian. You told me so yourself. I mean, we talked about it 3 different times today. Kelly brought it up, and you laughed it off. Coach Adams brought it up, and you changed the subject. I mean, it came up right before the wreck. Well, the question I can't get out of my mind is this, Zach. Why haven't you ever told me about how to become a Christian? I mean, you say you're my friend, but if you really were, you would have told me about this Jesus and told me how to escape this terrible place that I'm headed for. I can feel my heart pounding in my chest. The angels who have been chosen to cast me into hell are coming down the hallway. I can hear their footsteps. I've heard of this hell, Zach. They call it the lake of fire. I can't stand it, Zach. I'm terrified. Look, the angels are at the door. Oh no. No! They're coming in and they're pointing at me. They're grabbing me and carrying me out of the room. I can already smell the burning sulfur and brimstone. I can see the edge of the cliff where hell burns. This is it. I am without hope. We're coming closer, closer, closer. My heart is bursting with fear. They're holding me over the flames. I'm gasped forever. This is it. They have thrown me in. Fire, pain, hell. Josh.
Your friend, John.
P.S.
Welcome.
Wish you were here. Wish you were here. Wish you were here. Wish you were here.
You know, we all have a sphere of influence, and you don't know that you might be the last person someone meets that day before they die. It's an awesome responsibility we have with the gospel, but it is also an awesome privilege because we carry the words of life. Those words can change someone's eternity. We went to a prayer meeting, like my wife said, came home like any other normal night, nothing unusual about the night. I got up at 3 o'clock to get a glass of water, and suddenly I was pulled out of my body, like being drawn up out of your body. And I found myself falling through the air down this long tunnel, and it was getting hotter and hotter. And I entered into this open cavern area, and I landed on the stone floor, actually in hell. I looked up and I saw actual bars, rough-hewn stone walls and bars. I was in a prison, but filthy, stinking, dirty, like a dungeon. And I wondered, how did I get here? Why am I here? I was fully awake and cognizant, just like I'm standing here now. And the first thing I noticed was the tremendous heat. I thought, how could I be alive in this place? I should be incinerated. But yet here I was alive. And in this actual stone cell, Isaiah 24:22 says, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit and shall be shut up in the prison. Proverbs 7:27 mentions going down to hell, to the chambers of death. The word chambers means inner rooms. Job 17:16 says, they shall go down to the bars of the pit. Jonah 2:6, the earth with her bars was about me forever. And it's talking about literal bars and gates and prison cells, according to the Tyndale, the New International Commentary, the American Standard, and many others. So this is where I found myself in this cell, lying face down on the floor, and I noticed I had no strength in my body. I tried to move, but it took so much effort. I thought, what's wrong with my body? But Isaiah 14:9 and 10 says, hell from beneath is moved to meet thee at thy coming. They will say, art thou become weak as we? Psalms 88:4, I am counted with them that go down into the pit. I am as a man that has no strength. Now that might not sound like much, but if you ever had the flu and you felt weak, well, it's 1,000 times worse. Any movement takes tremendous effort. But see, Acts 17:28 says, in him we live and move and have our being. So even movement comes from God. It's not an automatic thing. It's a blessing from God. I looked up and I saw these 2 enormous creatures in this cell. They were demons, pacing in the cell like a vicious, caged animal. The most ferocious demeanor, pacing back and forth. One had bumps and scales all over his body, a huge jaw, sunken in eyes, and claws about 1 foot long. And these particular 2 were 12 or 13 feet tall. That's not an exaggeration. There's scripture for that too. Genesis 6:4, Deuteronomy 3:11, many others. And they were pacing and blaspheming and cursing God. And extreme hatred for God. But we know blasphemy comes from the demonic realm. Revelation 13:6 and James 2:7. And they directed that hatred that they have for God, they directed towards me. I thought, what have I done to them? Why do they hate me so much? But the one picked me up, threw me into the wall like I weighed the weight of a water glass. These demons have tremendous strength. Remember Mark 5:4, the man running through the tombs, and he broke chains and so forth. Demons have great strength, and you have none. I hit the wall, bones broke. I couldn't believe I'm living through this. I should be dead. How could I have survived that? But yet here I was. Now I felt pain, but I understood most of it was being blocked. The Lord explained on the way back that he hid most of the pain, blocked it from me. But he wanted me to experience a small amount of the pain so I could relate to people. It's not metaphorical, it's not allegorical, it's not a state of the mind. It's real, literal pain you're going to feel in hell. But the amount I felt was enough. And then this other demon picked me up and dug its claws into my chest and just tore the flesh open. I couldn't believe I'm living through this. This is actually happening. And you have a body. Matthew 10:28 says, fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Remember Luke 16, the rich man, he lifted up his eyes. He had a tongue. He wanted to drop water to cool his tongue. You have a body in hell, but somehow it withstands these torments and goes on and on. And these creatures have absolutely no mercy over you whatsoever. They hate you. But see, Psalms 103:17 says, the mercy of the Lord is upon those that fear him. Well, they don't fear him in hell, so you don't derive that benefit of mercy. And I noticed there was no blood or water coming from the wounds. That demon just dug his claws in my chest and tore it open. There was no blood or water. I just happened to notice. But Leviticus 17:11 says the life of the flesh is in the blood. Well, there's no life in hell, so there's no blood. And Zechariah 9:11 says, thy prisoners out of the pit where there is no water. There's not one drop of water in hell. About this moment it went dark. And I believe it was God's presence was there to illuminate it so I could see to describe what people it looks like. But then it resumed its normal state. Absolute pitch black darkness. I mean, you couldn't see the hand in front of your face. It was so dark. Lamentations 3:6 says, he has set me in dark places as they that be dead of old. Jude 13 mentions blackness of darkness forever. Many other scriptures I could give you on darkness, but it wasn't just dark. You could actually feel the darkness. And that's not an exaggeration. Exodus 10:21 mentions a darkness that may be felt. Because it just penetrated through every cell in your body. The evil that's in this place and the thick darkness. It's absolutely terrifying just to be in that dark of a place. And I've been in dark places. I've been in the caves in Arizona, the coal mines. You know, it's dark there, but this was different. It was really, really dark. I was taken out of this cell. I was placed over next to this large, raging pit of fire. I understood this pit was about a mile across. I just understood that. But there were actual flames raging high up in this open cavern. And it wasn't metaphorical or allegorical flames like some say. It was real, literal fire. I felt the heat. I saw the fire. And it was real, just like you'd see fire on the earth. Psalms 11:6 says, upon the wicked he will rain fire and brimstone in a horrible tempest. Psalms 140 verse 10 says, let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits. Matthew 13:49, the angels shall sever the wicked from the just and cast them into a furnace of fire. Isaiah 33:12-14 says, the people shall be as the burnings of lime. They shall be as thorns cut up and thrown into the fire and burned. Who among us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Who among us shall dwell with everlasting burnings? Jesus said in John 15:6, if you abide not in me, just as men gather branches that are withered, they are thrown into the fire and are burned. And just to give you one more verse to prove to you it's real fire, in Revelation 9:2, during the tribulation time here on the earth, when the bottomless pit is opened, it says, there arose a great smoke, and our air and sun were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. Well, it couldn't have been a metaphorical fire that produced real smoke that darkened their sun. It had to be a real fire down there that produced that real smoke. Remember Luke 16, he wanted a drop of water to cool his tongue. He was tormented in the flame. Well, if it was just flames of mental anguish, why would water suffice? It's real fire. And this is where I could first see people in this pit. There were people literally inside this pit burning. And I'm telling you, it's the most awful thing to see a person on fire. They're screaming, and the screams were so loud of the anguish of the people screaming. You know, you've ever heard one person scream, a terrifying scream? Well, there's millions of people. So you want to get away from that sound, but you can't. Isaiah 57:21 says, there is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. And Isaiah 32:18 says, my people dwell in a quiet resting place. Well, you're not his people, so you don't derive the benefit of quiet. And you remember we saw the Twin Towers when people had to, remember this, when they had to jump from the towers. They said the temperature of the burning fuel was 2,000 degrees. And they, being exposed to that, they would be incinerated in 15 seconds. Rather than face that, they chose to jump. And how awful that must have been to make that choice, to jump, rather than face that. Well, scientists say the center of the earth is 12,000 degrees. And it's not just for 15 seconds. And, you know, we're friends with a guy named Adam. He's a fireman for the Newport Beach Fire Department. He was caught up in remember the mountains that were on fire in California a few years ago? He was on the second floor with his friend, and the first floor burst into flames. And he said they couldn't see a way out. They couldn't see a window, and it was filled with smoke. And he says, our suits protect us between 600 and 700 degrees. He said, but my boots started melting to the floor. And then he said, I felt my hands, the flesh melting under my gloves. And he said, all I could think about was, where's the window? And they finally saw an opening and dove out the window. He said, I didn't care what was down below. I said, so you would have jumped from the Twin Towers? He said, let me tell you, Bill, to get out of burning, you would do anything. It is the most horrible feeling to feel your flesh melting. He said, it's just changed my whole life. That's why Jesus warned so much about hell. 46 verses he talked about hell, and 18 of those verses are about the fires of hell. I understood I was down deep in the earth. I just understood that. I descended to get there. I ascended when I left. But more importantly, there's 49 scriptures that talk about where the